County business.
We not only have additional lightning, but also heavy rain already developing down to our south. We'll take a look at just the exact timing of this from the Skywatch Weather Center.
Also, a Joplin man gets indicted for the kidnapping and murder of a woman.
The 4 states' most watched news starts now.
This is KOAM News at noon. I'm Bronte Sorotsky. We'll have those stories, but first, here's Michael with our cloudy Monday forecast.
And Bronte, I know you're going to bring us the story about that possible lightning strike down there in Barry County. Now, in just the last 20 minutes alone, we've seen this system down to our south drop its fair share of lightning. We really haven't had any yet in our counties, but it gives you a very good indicator of what this thing is capable of. And you'll notice it's almost 2 different swaths of lightning. One that's hanging around by Oklahoma City, and then the other one south on I-49 is really yet to get into our counties right there. We can remove the clouds and kind of see that it is creeping into Ottawa, or Delaware County, excuse me, but we have not picked up any lightning in our highlighted counties. But what is going to happen is everything down here to the south slowly and surely overtakes us for the afternoon into tonight. And then we're going to keep on rolling this all the way through tomorrow morning. Still a little bit cool outside, beats the 39s that we had earlier this morning, and just a little light variable wind, 5 to 10 miles per hour. So the big factor is going to be how much rain can we pick up? Well, we're anticipating anywhere easily from 2 to 3 inches, especially for our western counties. Here's Future Track in motion. As it dominates the west to begin with, we then see it begin to get into the central and eastern portions for tomorrow morning. Then we've got the counterclockwise movement as it spins over on itself, eventually dominating the central part and east side of southwest Missouri. And once we get started, look at this. It doesn't want to clear out of here until we get to Wednesday. Now, slowly but surely, we do creep up on the old mercury right there. We'll be in the high 60s, but average temperature, Bronte, remember, we should be in the high 70s, if not 80 degrees. We don't see that emerge until Friday, and by that point in time, we're just going to be begging for sunshine and dry air.
Oh man, well, definitely a change from what we've been having now, and also what happened over the weekend.
Yes.
And storms may actually be to blame for the destruction of a Barry County business. And just after 2 on Saturday morning, emergency responders were called to the K Cabinet shop near Highway 76 and Highway 39. A total of 5 fire agencies responded to the blaze. Firefighters say when they arrived, the building was 50% collapsed with fire throughout. The building and business are a total loss. Fire officials believe the fast-spreading fire was caused by a lightning strike. The Missouri State Fire Marshal is assisting with the investigation. A federal grand jury has indicted a Joplin man for the 2020 kidnapping and murder of a woman whose body was found in Mayes County, Oklahoma. Authorities say Trey Ackerson kidnapped Jolene Campbell, murdered her, and conspired with others to tamper with witnesses involved in the murder investigation. He's charged for all of those crimes. Under the indictment, Brianna Sloan, also of Joplin, is also charged with kidnapping and witness tampering. Also in this case, Kimberly Grissom, Lane Bronson, and Jacob Scribner, all of Joplin, are charged with tampering with witnesses in separate incidents. Authorities arrest a man suspected of robbing a Joplin bank last week. On May 9th, officers responded to a report of a panic alarm being set off at Great Southern Bank. When they arrived, they learned the bank had been robbed. Authorities identified Vincent Gepson of Anderson, Missouri, as the suspect. They say Gepson allegedly entered the bank and demanded money, then fled. Police on Friday announced that Gepson was located in Crowley, Louisiana, and was arrested on a federal warrant for bank robbery. Well, a Jay, Oklahoma man is dead following a crash in Ottawa County. Authorities say 45-year-old Kevin Backward was traveling south on State Highway 125. He went off the road into a ditch. Authorities say the vehicle rolled 2.5 times before coming to a stop on its top. Emergency crews took Backward to a hospital where he was pronounced dead. Joplin police say wind gusts might have been a factor when this semi-trailer overturned on the westbound ramp to I-44 from Missouri 43. The truck was hauling recycled metal when it tipped over. A wind advisory was in effect for part of the day as gusts reached 45 miles per hour. And tragic news coming out of Webb City, Missouri. The Webb City Police Department has released a statement regarding an unattended death of a student. Authorities say the death happened on the Webb City campus and there are no signs of foul play after an autopsy report. Officials have said, quote, "This is a tragedy that no family should ever have to endure. This child was the son, brother, nephew, and grandson that was loved by many friends. With utmost respect for and approval from the family, we decided not to publicize the investigation. In the end, we want to give the family the factual truth of what happened to their child." On Saturday, the Webb City community came together to mourn the loss of a student. The young man passed away earlier this month. Community members held a candlelight vigil at King Jack Park in his honor. They stood in silence as they remembered the young man. That's a look at today's top stories and weather in our first 7 minutes. Up next on KOAM News at Noon.
There's a bipartisan push on Capitol Hill to pass legislation addressing youth mental health and suicide prevention. I'm Natalie Brand in Washington with why families and lawmakers say this issue cannot wait.
And later, we're making honey mustard grilled pork chops in the Mr. Food Test Kitchen. New CDC data is shining a spotlight on the growing crisis of mental health issues among the country's youth since the pandemic. More than 40% of high school students surveyed reported feeling persistently sad and hopeless. As Natalie Brand reports, it's an issue now in focus on Capitol Hill, where there's bipartisan legislation to try and help address youth mental health and suicide prevention.
We were so close in so many ways.
Darlene Terryberry of Henderson, Nevada, lost her beloved granddaughter Angel in the fall of 2020.
I wish she had been able to talk so that we would be sitting together today.
The high school senior is one of 30 students within the Clark County School District who died by suicide since the pandemic began.
The pandemic, the online schooling, that isolation was probably a contributing factor.
We want to do everything we can to prevent those deaths.
Senator Jackie Rosen of Nevada and Senator Lisa Murkowski of Alaska have introduced a bipartisan bill to provide federal funding through the Substance Abuse and Mental Health Services Administration to public schools K through 12. Currently, that money is only available for colleges and universities.
And a teacher could be a first line of defense.
Anybody that works in a school should be trained to recognize the signs of distress for the students that would be in their age group at that school.
Oftentimes it is just even knowing that there is an issue there. If a child doesn't feel comfortable sharing this with a parent or another adult,
I really wasn't sure if anything was wrong.
For years, Alaska teen Claire Rainier kept her pain hidden from her family.
It was dark. It was really difficult. I kept doubting my experience. And at the time, I was self-harming.
Rainier, now 19, found healing at the Anchorage-based organization Mental Health Advocacy Through Storytelling.
It's very cathartic. It's very therapeutic to talk about your feelings and to talk about what you went through.
Rainier hopes the new proposed bill would help fund similar programs in schools nationwide.
If one family, just one, doesn't have to go through the pain and anguish that my family has gone through.
A grandmother's urgent plea for action to honor her granddaughter and help other young people. Natalie Brand, CBS News, Washington.
Senators Rosen and Murkowski say they hope votes can be taken on their bill this year. Lawmakers have also proposed separate legislation to try and increase the pipeline of mental health counselors in schools. Well, still to come on KOAM News at Noon, Mr. Food.
If your grill has been in hibernation all winter, now is the time to give it a checkup so your cookout doesn't turn into a cook-in.
But first, Michael Hayslip returns with your complete forecast.
In some way, it just wouldn't feel like 2022 if we weren't going to talk about rainfall. And that's exactly what we're going to find ourselves locked into for the last full week of May. And as a matter of fact, let's talk a little bit about the month of May, because your average precipitation, average May, 5.5 inches of rain. That'd be considered right on par with historic norms. We're going to press past 10 and we'll be past 10 inches by the time tomorrow's over. And like I say, we still got an entire week to go here in the month. Now, that annual number that you see, 23.5 inches, well, that would normally be about 17. So we're still well above that as well, about 7.5 inches there above normal. We'll get to our temperatures here, but more importantly, we got to concentrate on what's moving in from the south, because this system is starting to intrude right upon our counties in the far south. Delaware working into there, McDonald County, Benton County. It's not moving at a fast clip, that is for sure. It's hanging over most of Oklahoma. And speaking of Oklahoma, watch how this thing just generated here this morning. It wasn't one of those that actually traveled out of Texas. Kind of started down to the southwest of Oklahoma City, hung there, and now is moving up to the northeast. Instead of continuing off straight to the northeast, we'll actually see more of a northerly push as it takes over and will bring us heavy rains here overnight into tomorrow morning. And I tell you what, so far we've got some accumulation numbers south of Oklahoma City that are nearing the 2-inch mark already. And it hasn't been raining down there that long. And so we've got to go ahead and plan accordingly and anticipate what it's going to do to us, which is why we now have flood warnings for the western portion of southeast Kansas up until midnight, where we could be looking at easily 2 to 4 inches of rain. Now remember, that's the one that we're getting ready for tonight and tomorrow morning. So don't be surprised if we don't see these watches either one turn into warnings or two geographically expand as well. You know, anytime you get flood watches to the west side of Wichita right there, that is a little bit of an unusual sight. Dark skies over Joplin. Go back to that daily almanac we were talking about. Bronte and I were mentioning this morning. Average high should be about 80 degrees. We're a far cry off from that, about 20 degrees cooler. Luckily, it could be worse. If that wind were really bustling in from the north-northeast, we'd still have a wind chill in effect. But we've been able to drop that since this morning, and so we sit anywhere from about 57 to 62. We are seeing some of our warmer temperatures actually up to the north, but of course down to the south. That's where we've got the rain that's already beginning. It's kind of patchy throughout the contiguous 48. You pick up some pretty good thunderstorm activity in different sectors, but we haven't seen anything very elongated, and we'll call that a winner because it even eliminates us from being in the severe thunderstorm risk map. Really got to go down to most of Texas right there to find that low category. And remember, when we end up in the bright green, that eliminates our threat of high wind and hail. Doesn't mean we're not going to have flooding concerns, that is for sure. We're just able to back off on the high winds and the hail a little bit. Now, get ready to make sure, number one, you got the umbrella, and if you were chilly this morning, you're still going to want a coat for tomorrow, because we're going to wake up and it's going to be down into the 50s, and then be prepared to find an alternate route. Once this thing gets started here, we're going to have it roll pre-sunrise hours. That's that 2 to 4 inches out on the west right there with the flood watches. But I'll tell you what, the central and eastern portions, oh no, you are not exempt, because it's going to spin back over from Tuesday night into Wednesday morning. And that's why we'll say the bulk of the 4 states going to be looking at 1 to 2 inches. And of course, we'll get those pockets of 2 to 4. And it really is it's the Gulf Coast's fault for all of this. Watch how everything just comes out of Texas and Oklahoma and heads toward us. Not one of those systems that's from the upper plains that develops and drops down. And then it pushes east toward the Mississippi. So it is going to be rather impressive here to finish off the month of May with the amount of rain totals that not only the Midwest is going to get, but all throughout the Southeast, pushing to the Mid-Atlantic, Bronte.
Wow.
Yeah.
That was a whole lesson right there.
At one point in time, we're going to take a look at this contiguous 48 map on Wednesday, and it's going to be just about green everywhere.
Oh my gosh. Okay, well, thank you, Michael. Take this time to honor today's Forest Day hero, Sergeant Daniel Hickox. The El Dorado Springs, Missouri native served in Mosul, Iraq from 2004 to 2005 as part of the 24th Infantry Regiment. The Sergeant Daniel Hickox, we thank you, our Forest Day hero. Summertime is almost here, and that means it's time to start grilling. Howard shows us how to make honey mustard grilled pork chops in the Mr. Food Test Kitchen.
For many of us, this weekend will be the first time this season we'll be firing up the grill. And to make sure your cookout doesn't turn into a cook-in, now is the time to make sure your grill is in tip-top shape. If you have a propane grill, make sure your tank is in good shape. That means the on-off valve is working properly and the tank itself is not rusted. And if everything's okay, make sure you have it filled. On the grill itself, double check that the hose connecting the tank to the grill is not cracked. And if you have a self-starter, make sure it hasn't lost its spark. Now, whether you have a charcoal or gas grill, check the grates. That means cleaning them with a good quality grill cleaner. But if you can't save them and your grill is still in good shape, pick up a few replacements. Your grill manufacturer's website is always a good place to get information and parts. So when it's time to grill, it'll be smooth sailing. And to help kick off grill season, why not try these tasty pork chops? What makes them so good is the sweet and tangy glaze that caramelizes as it cooks. To get the recipe for our honey mustard grilled pork chops, all you need to do is go to our website. And while you're there, check out our tips on getting your grill in tip-top shape. I'm Howard of the Mr. Food Test Kitchen, where today we found getting ready for grill season way. For you to say, ooh, it's so good.
You can find this recipe along with a lot more good food from the Mr. Food Test Kitchen online. Just go to our website at KOAMnewsnow.com. Now, here's a look at 4 state market prices.
Rain-wise, this is where we are going. About 48 hours of nonstop coming down in our highlighted counties somewhere. And so we'll start out in the west. Remember, that is where we have our flood watches for western southeast Kansas, anticipating 2 to 4 by the time we get done with Tuesday. And not going to be surprised. Please join us. Of course, Doug and Nick will have the latest tonight. And then we'll be updating those flood watches continuously tomorrow morning.
All right, thanks, Michael. Dow, what do we have coming up today at 5?
Well, at 5, the CDC warns doctors to be on the lookout for the Monkey Pox virus. We're going to have the latest on the White House reaction. Plus, law enforcement officials across the 4 states begin the Click It or Ticket campaign to help save lives. And details on a fatal house explosion in Chanute. Hope you'll join us for those stories. Very latest on flood warnings all coming up today on KOAM News at 5.
Thanks for joining us for KOAM News at noon. We'll see you right back here at 5 o'clock.